This is White Noise, a Leeds United podcast.
Welcome to White Noise, a Leeds United podcast, hosted by myself, Luke Kellaway. On today's episode, I'll be joined by Leeds United fans Charlie Fawcett and Dylan Easton. And throughout the episode, we'll be hearing from LUTV commentator Bryn
I've done every game last season. I've been up and down the country covering Leeds United.
And BBC Radio Leeds broadcasters Adam Pope.
Ellen Road is still really intimidating, and you hear players telling you it's a massive factor.
And Jonny Buchan.
Out in there, to be able to witness that was a real privilege, a real honour to be able to be in the ground and see that.
Hello everyone and welcome to White Noise, a Leeds United podcast. I'm joined by Charlie Fawcett and Dylan Easton. We're going to delve straight into Friday night's action, Charlie. What are your thoughts?
Well, I was relieved more than anything because coming into that game off the back of the Burnley game where we dropped points where we shouldn't have dropped points and we took on a team that we should really be beating and they played us off the park. We came into this today, or on Friday rather, needing to win more than anything. And I think it was really impressive the way the team started. 2 goals early on. They were clearly up for it. The fans were clearly up for it. And they did the job they needed to do.
One player I wanted to pinpoint was Brendan Aronson. He's come under some stick over the past few weeks, but what did you make of his performance on Friday?
Yeah, I thought he played really well, to be fair. He scored after 3 minutes, and in previous seasons of Brendan Aronson at Leeds, he's not really been one that scores early on. If he scores, it's often like as part of a 4-0 win. But to be that player, to get that first goal so early on, was so pivotal to our success on Friday night. That dribble that he took on 2 or 3 West Ham players was sensational. I've not seen Aronson in that vein of confidence in such a long time.
We spoke to LUTV commentator Bryn, who's been the man on the mic for Leeds United's magic moments over the years. We spoke to Bryn about how he started his career in journalism and his best moments covering Leeds United.
I went on a journalism course for a year, postgrad course, and that taught me the specifics of journalism because in those days you became a news journalist or a reporter, and that was the entry to becoming a sports journalist. So you did one before you did the other. So I did that, went to work as a news reporter. At the same time I was doing some sport, and then an opportunity to work in Leeds arose, which was a news sport job, and then it became completely a sports job after about a year or so of working at that. So that was my route into becoming a football commentator, basically. Doing some of the Leeds United stuff in the last couple of seasons, particularly the last game of last season, was a real highlight to get to commentate on a moment like that. Final minutes of the final game of the season and a goal goes in to win the championship for Leeds United. That's a good thing because those are the moments you could wait all of a career for something like that. On the same basis, I was on the pitch the night that Wales qualified for a European tournament, for any tournament, for the first time since 1958 in 2015. I was on the pitch with the players doing all the interviews at the end of that game. That was another highlight that I'd identify as well. Weird things happen a lot. Sometimes you get mistaken for people who you aren't at games. People think I'm an ex-player sometimes. Had that at Portsmouth last season, where the guy on the gate, as we were going in to pick up our passes, said to me, "I always thought you were a great player. What a great player you were." And I was with an ex-player who genuinely had been a player and had played in the Premier League, who he didn't recognise at all. So he thought I was a player, the player who I was with, no recognition. Personal abuse, I kind of tend to ignore it, frankly. Occasionally, if it's kind of goes beyond what's acceptable in terms of legitimate criticism, perhaps, then I'll just block an account. What I don't do is almost never respond. There are 2 goals in terms of the commentaries that I've done that probably stand out as being other people's favourites. So the clear winner on that basis is Pablo Hernandez's goal against Swansea away in the lockdown season when he scored in the last minute to win the game. So there was that commentary. That was a good one to do because at the time nobody was allowed in the stadiums, and on that particular game it was the only place to watch. It was LUTV, so it was a kind of a unique set of circumstances. It wasn't on Sky that game. It wasn't available to watch anywhere else. It was only on the Leeds United channel. So we had loads and loads of people watching it who might not normally have been following Leeds that way. So there was a huge collective audience for that goal. So that is one that I get asked about a lot of times. And then another one that I really enjoyed was the Manor Solomon goal at Plymouth last season as well, just because that was such an important goal. I'd done every game last season. I'd been up and down the country covering Leeds United, and it came down to those last 3 or 4 minutes and that last goal before the thing was finally completely settled. So that's as good a finish as you'll ever get. You couldn't hope for a goal to describe than that. What we expected. It's much more difficult. They've won a couple, they've lost a couple, and it'll carry on like that through the rest of the season. The games are difficult, and the players have got to play at a level of intensity that they would have got away with not hitting last season. And so it's a very different experience now. Having commentated for 2 seasons where Leeds earned 190 points, was it, across 2 seasons? So basically they won every game. We're now in a place where Leeds will win 1 in 4, maybe. And so that's a really different kind of mindset that you have to have for that. But everybody's got to be of the same mindset, because that's the way it is. You've got to kind of basically sacrifice everything to try and do it. So I've missed, my daughters will testify, I've missed so many events in their lives. Like my daughter's birthdays, one of my daughter's birthdays every year from the age of 5 to the age of about 18, I was away every year on her birthday, because I did international games and she was born in international week. So the job I did meant I wasn't there at home when she had her 16th birthday, for instance. So those are the kind of, you work weekends, you've got to work every weekend, you work a lot at night. You've just got to, it's all in. You've got to be all in with it. And so your enthusiasm is the thing that keeps you doing it. The passion is the thing that makes you want to carry on doing it.
So Dylan, what do you remember about that Pablo Hernandez goal?
I just remember that ball in from Luke Ayling from Mountainside. And it's the way that the ball went precisely in the corner. I think it was Freddie Woodman in net. He dived. So if it were just an inch the other way, he'd have definitely saved it. But it was nestled into the bottom corner so well. Then obviously the celebration is just iconic. Taking the shirt off, all the substitutes running over. What a moment.
So we know how good of a player Pablo Hernandez was, but Charlie, what made him so special?
I think he just offered creativity that you don't see in every player. I think he's a game changer. His passing is one of the best I've ever seen in a Leeds shirt. Week in, week out, he was always consistent, always scoring. And that's why he's looked back as a legend now. Obviously, the Bielsa era is what stands out. But even before, we've struggled for a few years when he first signed. But he was a shining light throughout some of the tougher seasons.
Dylan, do you think Leeds United are still missing a Pablo Hernandez kind of player?
Yeah, I think I do. So when the ball gets into the final third, we've not really got that playmaker. When we had Rafinha, he was a bit of a Pablo-esque player, but he was obviously a winger rather than an attacking midfielder. But now within the team, we've not really got anybody that creative. I mean, when we were in the Championship, we had Jorginho Rutter, but since he left for Brighton, I'd say there's still a Pablo void in that team, definitely.
So, Charlie, we know during lockdown, no fans were able to attend the games. How important were LUTV and Bryn at that point?
Well, to be honest, as a match-going fan, and obviously with Leeds being on TV so much, I very rarely watch LUTV's coverage. But in COVID, obviously there was no other option. Every game was shown on there. And I think for that reason, hearing Bryn's voice is almost nostalgic to that time when Leeds were playing so well. And he sort of united the fan base because there was no other way of watching the team. So everybody was watching the same streams, hearing the same commentary. And yeah, I look back, when I hear Bryn Law's commentary, I think back to that season and the success that we had.
We spoke to BBC Radio Leeds broadcaster Adam Pope, who told us about his start to his career in journalism and his best moments covering Leeds United.
Well, it wasn't the traditional route, I have to say. I used to work in builders merchants. So if you know, like Juicents, company called that used to be on Ellen Road. I used to work for those for about 8 years. And then I went into brewing with Bass. So I didn't do it as straight from college, you know. So, but what I did do was some hospital radio voluntary work in Huddersfield. And that's where I got a taste for it in my sort of mid-20s, that I might like to try and be a commentator as a career. But it was a bit of a dream. And then I got to about 30, so I was quite late when I started. And I got some freelance work at Radio Leeds covering Halifax Town. So I used to do that at a weekend and work for another company called Team Talk, who are still going, which became a full-time job until the position at Radio Leeds came up a few years later. So having freelanced, I then took the job for the Leeds United role when my predecessor, Luke Warman, who now works with MLS in Canada, when he left, then I got the role sort of full time. So yeah, it was a bit of a weird way into the role, to be honest. Yeah, not a traditional way, I'd say. If you're asking me to pinpoint one moment, I'd say, yeah, the drama of scoring that late goal down at Plymouth, I mean, they not only had already got promotion, but they won the league, is going to be right up there, because it was just everything you want in a footballing moment, really. And then the parade that followed as well was spectacular. We had a great day doing that. So yeah, they'll live long with those moments. The one that probably sticks out in my mind is still Rafinha doing that spinning backheel nutmeg on Gary Cahill. And it was just the most brilliant bit of skill I've ever seen. And so it wasn't even a goal. It was just this unbelievable bit of skill. I mean, you think back to, some wonderful strikes, Sol Bamba and one Suleiman Dakara, great individual moment. There's goals that I wish I could have done better with. Beckford at Manchester United, I really don't like my commentary on that one, to be quite honest. Sometimes you get it right, sometimes you don't. But I tell you, any commentator will tell you that it's the stuff they don't do well that they think about more than the stuff they did well. Once you start doing this job for a period of years, that you don't not become a fan, but you look at the game differently. So you're not a fan doing your job. That just doesn't work. You can't be. You have to be focused and professional, and because quite often there'll be things that will come up in a game, whether it be against Everton or anybody else, and you've got to call it exactly as it is. So if Leeds are having a bad game against Everton, I would have to say that because Leeds are having a bad game, not because I'm an Everton supporter. I think that you have to have a social media presence quite clearly. Be persistent, be on time, be trustworthy, be prepared, make your contacts, get reliable, and then the work will come. And have good equipment as well if you can. It's worth spending that bit of extra. If you are podcasting or if you are filming or whatever, people don't put up with poor quality stuff anymore. It is worth sort of pushing the boat, which I know is difficult when you're young and you might not have the resources to do that. But yeah, I'd say that's the advice. Don't give up. Generally, when I changed jobs to do this, I was sort of late 20s, 30. I'm married, I had one child at the time, and it was a difficult time to do it. If you're adamant this is your life, and it is a life as well, it's disruptive, it's not glamorous particularly, it can be difficult, it can put strain on things, but ultimately it's really enjoyable.
So I heard from Adam Pope there, Dylan, and he come into journalism quite late. Does that send a message that anybody can do anything at any point in life?
Adam Pope had quite a unique route into journalism, I'd say. And it really does show that no matter what industry that you're currently working in, like if you're a builder, if you work in a supermarket, if you've got that passion and desire to be a journalist, anything's possible.
So, Charlie, we heard Adam Pope, obviously being an Everton fan and covering Leeds United. How important is it to keep bias aside in that line of work?
Well, I think you can probably tell us that more than anything. Obviously, as a Bradford fan, you'll know how it feels. And I think it's just important to take away club loyalty in this job, because at the end of the day, it's unlikely that you're going to get the chance to cover your team and talk about your team on a day-to-day basis. But if you're getting the opportunity to talk about football, I think you need to just take out bias, take out all that sort of thing, and just take it in a very professional way and enjoy the job at the end of the day.
So, Dylan, we heard there from Adam about the goals like Solomon's goal, Hernandez's goal, Dakara's goal, Bamba's goal. But what is your favourite goal while watching Leeds United?
I think from a personal perspective, it's got to be Somerville against Liverpool at Anfield. I was in the away end that night, and we went to Anfield expecting absolutely nothing out of the game. Went 1-0 up through Rodrigo, and then Salah equalised just before half-time. But as a Leeds fan, away at Anfield, you're expecting nothing. Then when Somerville popped up in the last minute of the game with that little toe poke past Alisson, the away end was just absolute carnage, and I think that's got to be my favourite goal.
Charlie, have you got a favourite goal?
Well, I think that's a great answer from Dylan, but mine also touches on more of a personal reason. It's not the best goal we've scored, but I think Archie Gray against Leicester in 23-24 was the best for me, just because it was a huge game, so much pressure on it. Obviously, the season didn't turn out how we were hoping it would in the end, but that moment, coming from behind, when Ellen Road was already absolutely feral with the equaliser, turning it around that quickly. I just remember the scenes were insane. I think I must have been upside down at one point. Just the celebrations were unbelievable, and I won't forget it anytime soon.
We spoke to BBC Radio Leeds broadcaster Jonny Buchan, who told us about his start to his career in journalism and his best moments covering Leeds United.
I worked from BBC Radio Leeds 7 years ago when the sports editor's job came up. I, at the time, was working at BBC Radio Sheffield. I've been down there for about 5 years and was doing sports journalism, hosting phone-ins, interviewing players, managers, commentaries every week, all that sort of stuff. And before that, I'd been in commercial radio for quite a few years and done a few other different bits and pieces in media. And then, when this job came up, Leeds is my home patch. It was a chance for me to get back up to Leeds. So when the opportunity came, I applied for it, went for it, fortunately got it. And then 7 years on, a global pandemic later, and we're still sat here, still talking about Leeds United on a week-to-week basis. Highlight of the career so far, in terms of what I've witnessed, it was actually during COVID. We were fortunate enough to still be able to be in football grounds at that time. We were key workers. We were allowed to travel up and down the country and still go to games. So in terms of witnessing a couple of things that the majority of people sadly weren't able to see because they weren't allowed into the grounds. Pablo Hernandez's goal down at Swansea, which was one of the key goals in Leeds United's promotion. There were only a few hundred people allowed in the ground that day, and I was fortunate enough to be one of them. And then Leeds being promoted, lifting the trophy at Elland Road, which people saw afterwards when they hung around outside and they're on the bus and all those sorts of things. But we were actually inside the ground again, no crowd in there. To be able to witness that was a real privilege, a real honour to be able to be in the ground and see that. Commentating at Wembley is also a big one. I've done a couple of games down at Wembley Stadium, which is always an honour to be down there. You know, it's the national stadium. It's got so much history to it, so many different occasions to it. So to be able to bring those moments from those big games like that onto the airwaves for people who aren't able to be there, as was the case as well during COVID, I think they're probably the career highs for me right now. My advice to people when they're using the socials and the likes is don't take it to heart. Try and have a bit of thick skin. Realise that whatever you do, someone somewhere is going to probably criticise you for it. They won't praise you for the good work. They'll just criticise you for the bad work. Don't bite. Don't go back on people. I don't think that's necessarily the best thing to do when you are dealing with social media as well. And I always have a rule as well in my head in terms of posting on socials and all those sorts of things. If I wouldn't say it live on the radio, I don't post it on any of my social media. And I think that gives you a pretty good grounding as to what you can and can't say on social. Keep going. In the early days, it can be at times confusing, demoralising. You might see people getting opportunities you're not getting. You might be knocking on people's doors and the doors aren't opening for you. My advice would be to just keep going, because I'm a big believer in that. I'm a believer that if you keep persevering and you keep knocking on doors and you keep asking people for opportunity, you keep asking people for help, then you will get that opportunity in the end. And sometimes it takes sickness. Sometimes it takes a snow day and they need someone to come in and fill in. It's little bits of luck like that, but you create your own luck by being in the right place at the right time. So my biggest bit of advice to people is make sure you're getting as much experience as you can, as early as you can in your career. If you're about to finish university and you haven't been getting work experience and working in places yet, you're a bit late. If you're earlier than that, get working now. Get knocking on people's doors, offering your availability. And the opportunity might not come straight away, but keep knocking on those doors, keep knocking on enough of them. And at some point, a door will open for you. And that could just be the one you need to walk through to be able to have a long and varied career, which is what it's all about in the end. I think it's going to be a long season. I think it's going to be a fight all the way through. I think there have been a few trends that have been concerning this year. Lack of creativity, lack of goals has clearly been a problem, hasn't it? Okafor has looked lively, but not necessarily consistently lively. Calvert-Lewin's missed a lot of good opportunities, as everyone probably knew he would, but his overall game has been pretty good. I do think at this moment right now, they've got enough to be able to stay in the Premier League. I think it's going to be a long old fight. I think people need to realise that there are going to be games where they're not going to get what they probably deserve from the game. I think they did deserve to win against Bournemouth, didn't get the points there. They probably deserve to get at least a draw against Tottenham, didn't get the points there. They have to start creating a few games where the performance results in points, I think.
So that moment when Leeds United secured promotion on that day when Burnley beat Sheffield United, what was that moment like?
Well, it was a great day, obviously. Being at Elland Road to watch Leeds pull off a 6-0 win, it's a very rare occurrence to see your team score 6 goals. And on such a high-pressure day, it was unbelievable. Then standing in a pub full of hundreds and hundreds of people all crowded around a little TV to watch the Burnley game, it sort of felt like the fan base coming together to celebrate such a historic moment. And obviously the celebrations outside Elland Road to cap it all off, it were a great day, and even the Bristol City game the week later when we'd secured that we were going up fully the first time in the ground with the players and the fans coming together again. It was an absolutely magical week, really.
So then obviously a few days later, Leeds went on to win the championship thanks to that late Solomon goal at Plymouth. What was that moment like for you, Dylan?
Absolute carnage. I mean, it was 1-1 for so long throughout the game. You know, as a Leeds fan, seeing Burnley, you know, across the Pennines winning, it's like, oh, it's Burnley's title now. You know, we've had a good season. We've come second. Let's focus on Premier League. Then out of nowhere, you know, Solomon gets the ball nice and quick straight into that bottom corner. And watching it on telly and seeing that away end erupt as it did was just crazy. Because like the Somerville goal at Anfield, we did not expect for that goal to come when it did, because we were so lacklustre in the game. You know, couldn't break Plymouth down. But then to see Ethan Ampadu lift the championship trophy, like Liam Cooper did all them years ago, you know, really special moment.
So following on from that Solomon goal and Leeds United win the championship, what are your memories from that day of the parade?
Right, we're unbelievable, and it's something that you dream of as a fan, because obviously we were promoted in COVID, but we didn't get any of that. So I've not known how that's felt like in my whole time supporting Leeds. So having the opportunity to come out, and rather than it just being the diehard support together, it was the whole city, like more fans than I even knew the club had, all coming together. And I think it's just a really nice moment, young and old, whether you are at Ellen Road every week or you've not been for 20 years, just coming out together to celebrate all over one thing. It shows how powerful football can be for a community.
So Charlie and Dylan, before this show, I asked you to make a five-a-side team of players that you've seen play for Leeds United. What have you got?
Well, for the goalkeeper, to be honest, in my time supporting Leeds, it were pretty slim pickings. You can't really pick any of the current ones based on what we've seen. So I was looking back through the seasons, and I got to 2016 and thought, Rob Green kept quite a few clean sheets. He was also an England goalkeeper. He's got the reputation, and I think he put in some good performances for us. So that's what I went for.
And then I went for Ben White. He came on loan to Leeds in Bielsa's promotion season, and he was an absolute rock at the back during that season. Obviously now gone on to play for Arsenal and a few caps for England. So yeah, he's my pick.
Into the midfield, and I went for who I think anyway is the best player I've ever seen play for Leeds, and probably the best Leeds player of the century in Rafinha. Gone on to play for Barcelona, nearly won the Ballon d'Or just last month. Missed out on that. Whether you agree or disagree is not important at the minute. On the team, I think Rafinha was absolutely brilliant for Leeds, an absolutely brilliant player in general, and it was hard to look past him.
And the other spot in the midfield, I've gone for Pablo Hernandez. We've touched on him already during this podcast. You know, what an absolute magician Pablo was. And yeah, I think he's one of the first names on that team sheet, to be honest.
And as for the striker, I've gone for Chris Wood. Maybe the ones in the current team aren't quite as prolific as you'd like, but Chris Wood, 30 goals in the Championship. We only finished 7th that season, but he was the top scorer in the league, and I thought he was brilliant. So had to be the pick for me.
So to finish off the show, Dylan, who are your bottom three?
Wolves, Burnley, West Ham.
And yourself, Charlie?
Wolves, Burnley, Leeds, unfortunately.
Thank you for listening to White Noise, a Leeds United podcast. Thank you to Charlie and Dylan for joining me today. I'd like to express our thanks to Bryn, Adam Pope and Jonny Buchan. See you all next time.
This is White Noise, a Leeds United podcast.